I on? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Hellinger. Welcome to today's presentation. I hope I'm okay for the camera guy in the back. I tend to walk around a lot when I present, so they've told me I have to stand very still and in one place so they can video this. I find it somewhat interesting that I'm about to do a presentation called Beyond the LMS. If you look around, I'm standing in this sea of LMS suppliers right now. So I have the controversial topic to talk about. And if anybody rushes the stage, I'm counting on all of you to protect me at this point in time. Okay? Can you hear me in the back? Is it okay? Thank you. So my topic today is around personalization and how to build a roadmap for technology that's going to help you get to this elusive term called personalization. So personalization, if you don't know, is a topic that last year at this show, that was on all the suppliers' stands. So last year was personalization. The year before that, it was some other topic. The year before that, it was some other tagline. And what I hope to achieve in the next 30 minutes is not to tell you what to do about personalization, but to help you understand how to do it. And I think it's very easy to talk about concepts in the learning and development world, but it's a lot harder to tell people how do you actually do this. So, assuming this works. It does. So, just real quickly, I'm the president and CEO of a company called Xyleme. We're based out of Boulder, Colorado. We have a presence both in North America and throughout Europe. We're in the learning content business. That's historically where we have come from. We're not a learning management system supplier. We're not an LMS supplier. So we have been recognized by a number of leading firms for some technology we've developed and for some problems that we've helped people solve in the L&D world. And that's my plug on Xyleme for the next few minutes. So let me begin with a graphic from the Gartner Group that seemed pretty appropriate being here in London with all of you. And that is to look at technology in the context of not learning and development, but actually in the context of marketing that presents the technology to you in a all too familiar tube map. And if you look at the different tube lines that are on here, you'll see the way that it's been laid out is that certain technologies like social and mobile and analytics are represented on these different lines in the presentation. And what I think is very interesting about learning and development is that there's an awful lot of parallels about what's going on from a technology perspective in the learning and development world with what's going on not only in the web marketing world, but in website and web content development in general. So here's my first controversial statement for today, I hope. It's taken in the spirit it's intended, which is we need to get instructional designers to start thinking like web developers, website developers, and less like instructional designers. And that's not because instructional design unto itself is a bad thing. But in order to address the technology paradigm that's coming at everyone in L&D, we have to think more like how we build and integrate websites into the rest of the enterprise. And I'm going to talk about this theme as we go through this technology roadmap. So I don't know where we are on the map. I couldn't figure out how to get from the district line back to wherever I'm going. So I just walked down to High Street, Kensington, because it's easier to get on the circle line. But I think fundamentally the approach here is that in the world we live in today, there's no one solution to solving learning and development needs of the organization. The model is moving to much more of a loosely coupled architecture or model where integration becomes the primary concern of L&D. How do I integrate into the rest of the enterprise? And if you look at this kind of model, you'll see some parallels as we go through today's presentation. Okay, so moving along here, I think you'll find that the paradigm everyone's familiar with is that the learning management system has been the center of the learning universe for most organizations. When you ask most employees or students or people who you provide content and courses to name their learning technology, they tend to name the LMS they use. We use XYZ as our corporate university, or XYZ for our portal that we go to. And this paradigm was built around a model where we needed to do some very specific things. Number one, we needed to address the all too overused paradigm shift of moving from classroom training to online e-learning. And while that process has been underway for well over 15 years, it is quite amazing that over half of all training still takes place in a classroom, be it virtual classroom or a physical classroom. I don't know the exact number. I know it was as high as over 60% from some statistics I heard a year or so ago. But for all of the advances in e-learning and self-paced e-learning, there's an awful lot of education and training that still takes place with an instructor or a facilitator or a mentor or not in my LMS. The second thing we really need to think about is that learning management systems were not designed to be content management systems. That was an afterthought. So for most LMSs, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but aside from launching and tracking an e-learning course, or what we think of as desktop e-learning historically, the second offering to most users of the LMS is to get a PDF handed to them. Here's the student guide. Here's something that is very typically a big old-fashioned PDF with lots of pages in it, and you can download it, and that's to help you perform your job. I don't know about you, but when I have something to do and I have a task to perform, or if I ask the typical employee who's performing an operation on a manufacturing operation or at a point of sale in a retail operation or out in the field providing service to someone, they tend to want to have information given to them in the context of what they're doing in very small pieces of information. I don't really want a 473-page PDF that I have to go flip through or type a word in and hit next and try and find things. And unfortunately, this is not what the content repositories or object repositories of most LMSs were designed to do. They were really a place to not store PDFs, but to do it in a way that perhaps helps you when you're taking a classroom experience. The next thing you need to consider is that, by and large, historically, all reporting that comes out of any learning management system is proprietary to the supplier of that learning management system. And one of the nice parts about what's evolving in the world today, and we'll talk about more, is that there's a whole bunch of new standards that are going to help you make this easier, more portable, and more flexible. And then finally, it's not really an optimal situation, whether I'm on my mobile phone or I'm on my desktop, that when I need some information to help me do my job, that I have to log into my learning management system, find the course that the information was in, be it in an e-learning format or a PDF, hit next till I get to the piece of information I need, or search through the pages. And while I can't speak universally, and I'm sure there are differences and suppliers have done things to help this experience, by and large, that's what learning management systems do. They play e-learning, they provide reports, and they schedule classrooms. Now, at the risk of heresy, you'll notice many of the learning management system suppliers are now talent management system suppliers, okay? And the thing we want to talk to you about is that's okay. There are still things that learning management systems do very well. But one of the things that they're not very good at is helping with informal learning. You know, we did a study of the word performance support. How many of you have heard the term performance support? Performance support's been around for about 20 years to help the person do their job better, perform their tasks, help them perform their specific assignments better. And actually, this term is not particularly widely searched on. So the term informal learning really means anything that doesn't happen in a formal, structured class. And that could be mentoring someone by your side. It could be searching for information that will help you do what the task at hand is. And by and large, all of the learning management systems seem to take an approach towards formal learning to have to really make it harder for you to do this. So I have to set up some activity inside of kind of a course or inside of something that can be tracked and learned. And the metaphor we like to use is that, and we didn't invent it, but if you walk around here, and I know I was just talking to Charles Jennings, I'll give him a little plug here, who has this framework called the 70-20-10 framework, some of you may have heard of. We were talking with some other people about different knowledge management frameworks. By and large, the information people need at their moment of need is very hard to get out of their learning management system. And so when you look at what's behind all of this, we think it's very interesting, again, some research from Brandon Hall that talks about what's going on in the greater LMS, TMS marketplace. And what I find really interesting is that when you ask people, are you happy with your LMS? The overwhelming answer is, no, I'm actually thinking about replacing my LMS. Now, we're going through some pretty dramatic technology shifts now. We're moving from people who were not in the cloud to the cloud, different models of delivery for this. But oftentimes, the conventional thinking is still, if I replace my LMS, that's going to help me solve my learning problems. And if you look at learning and development, not as I have to build e-learning courses, but I have to provide training and content to people, whether it's formal, informal, or whatever platform is best on whatever device is best for them. This is just part of the answer. It's no longer the center of my technology. It's just one part of my technology. And when you look at that tube map, or you look at a map of learning technologies, what you're going to see is that the future of learning has to be built around solving some of the fundamental problems that have existed with learning management systems. So again, a little graphic here, some research that came to us about why do people want to replace their learning management systems? And when asked the question, you'll find things like ease of use and reporting features, but as you dig deeper into it, you start to see integration into the enterprise. I need a place where I can give my learners access to the content from anywhere, not just from the LMS, from one or more learning portals, from one or more mobile apps that I'm building. The business has a mobile app that's maybe helping me perform works orders or helping me be out on sales calls and doing my sales activity. And I really need the flexibility to get at the learning content without being encumbered by a closed system that's not easy to get at from the outside world. And as you move down the chart, you start to see things like personalized content start to evolve. And so what I'm going to describe for you now is a paradigm to try and help you model what your technology platform needs to look like if you really want to get to this objective of delivering personalized learning to learners anytime, anywhere, on any device. One other comment. The reason for doing this is that the old model of every time we need to do learning, it has to be a formal course that can be tracked by the learning management system is not the model of the future. Think about your own experience. When you want to learn something or find out something, do you tend to go in, log into your learning management system and go look at a course you took 6 months ago or 12 months ago? No, you go search for some information. If you're like most people, you'll go to Google or some search tool, or you'll go look at something like, let me find a video that I can watch that'll show me how to do this. You don't often go back and say, help me find what I need by going into a formal course. And that is absolutely true for your constituency. So whether you're talking about employees needing to perform a particular job task, or you're talking about customers or partners who are getting education or getting content that's going to help them sell or provide services of yours. The old paradigm was, I need to take a course. Quite honestly, that course was typically designed to be desktop e-learning, to use that term, or it was designed to be taken in a classroom with an instructor over many days. So if you look at the new model, this is really about a continuous process of content development and measurement. And the model we'd like to lay out for you is that while the LMS has many important things that it can do for your organization, what we believe is the model for the future is taking everything that's content out of the LMS and moving it into some technology that's designed to manage and deliver content on any device from any application and can adapt to the way the person needing the information requests it. So it's not about, I built some desktop e-learning and you shall take my course, instructional designers. It's about, here's some content that's going to help you learn formally, informally, however's best suited for you, that's available when you want it on the device you choose. And that process from my right, your left, to the other side, is really beginning with this idea that I'm going to build good content. I'm no longer just building courses. I need to develop content that's going to be usable, interesting, and searchable, whether it's inside a course, outside a course, in my LMS, in a learning portal, on my mobile phone, wherever it is. And that step of building content in a way that's untethered from the e-learning course that I used to build, that SCORM package or that AICC package that I used to build, is really fundamental to having a technology that can serve content on demand. As you move through this, I need to get the content into the cloud. I need to get it into a place that's easy to get to from the outside world. And one of the great things about putting content in the cloud, and not to overuse that term, that was another term from 2 years ago, everybody had cloud on their booth, is that once it's there, it needs to be easy to get at. It needs to have what we call in the software world application programming interfaces, or APIs, that say, get me this piece of content, or get me this piece of data that I need. And I don't need to be an expert, a software developer to do that. The next piece of the equation is I need to be able to deliver it in multiple formats. You know, when Xyleme first got started, we were known as the XML people. I think we're still known as the XML people. That's one of our core technologies. And we spent a lot of time talking to people about how they could build content for classroom and e-learning. And we spend more and more of our time now talking to people about how do you build content for both mobile devices, particularly smartphones, and desktop devices. And how do you digitize your content that's used in the classroom so it's available on tablets? It's not about print or web or ILT versus web. It's about all of this stuff. How do you make the content available in all these different formats? Because as a learner, I'm not only getting my content from my LMS. I may be inside of an application and I need to get a piece of content, whether it's a video or some help, and the application needs to be able to get at your content without having to go to 10 different sources or look at multiple copies of the same content, so that every time I have to update it, I have to remember to update it in 12 places and then translate it into 23 languages. that nightmare of what's my content and how does the strategy let me go to this is really, really important as you look forward. And then as the content gets out there, thank you, how do I, as an instructional designer, take feedback from the community to improve the content? And one of the things that's really important here is that when you put content out into people's hands, they have the ability to comment on it or to rate it. And as an instructional designer, I want to have access to those comments, to those ratings. Not just, did I like the course or not, but here's a piece of content that taught me how to perform a task or make a procedure. And here's how I would suggest you make it better. Let's get rid of the animated PowerPoint that shows me something spinning around on the screen and just make a video of someone doing this task or this job. That will help me more. And that feedback and comment then comes back into the content. And what I need to do from a content strategy and an instructional design point of view is I need to take that content and update it. I need to move from a model where I can make updates and I have to publish that content into my LMS and then publish the content into many, many different content silos. I need to put it in one place in the cloud where when I make that update, everybody has it. And there's no work for me as either an instructional designer or an LMS administrator or a portal manager to do this. I mean, again, back to my analogy of being a web developer. Think about your corporate website. If every time someone came to your corporate website, there was multiple copies of the same piece of content everywhere, and the design was such that when you wanted to make an update to a particular piece of content, someone had to go in and change it all over the place. That's not how we build websites. We build websites to try and make the content not only singular in nature so that it's easy to update, but responsive in design so that whether I come at it from a mobile phone or a tablet or my desktop, the experience adapts to the device that I'm on. And this cycle of building content, publishing it, getting feedback, updating it, is a cycle that's very familiar to web developers. Why? Because one of the things that our web marketing team does, and learning and development should be doing, is analyzing the content to see what content is valuable and what's not valuable. At your corporate website, someone's sitting there every day with Google Analytics or some other tool, looking at what pages are being accessed, how much time people are spending on what content, what terminology people are using to search for that content. And that same model has to become part of learning content technology. That same model of helping instructional designers understand what content is useful, getting feedback, monitoring the analytics about the content. Don't keep building it just because you built it before. How do you enhance it? How do you make it better? How do you make the experience of the consumer of that content a better experience? So the road to personalization begins with having your content developed in a fundamentally more strategic way than you've done in the past. It's not about how quickly can I pump out a course. In fact, another one of my controversial or interesting statements will be, rapid authoring tools mean problematic updates, maintenance, translation, and everything downstream from it. They solve a really quick problem, which is the business unit came to you or somebody came to you and said, can you build me a course on X, Y, and Z? But they create so many downstream problems because you're not reusing content. You're not looking at the strategic processes that have to be done. And if you don't look at that, getting to personalization of learning experiences will never happen. It's not about, can I look at any one of these things individually? So again, you can put profiles into your learning management system, or take that data from other enterprise sources, your HR system. Some of our customers take it from their directory services, where someone says what business unit they work in or what department they're in. You can put a social network up. I'm on record on YouTube saying this, so I do not believe that any learning management system that has its own social network is a strategic play for you. The social networks of the future are just part of the enterprise infrastructure. It's like email. You know, you're going to have a social network. We use Yammer internally. That wasn't a plug for Yammer, and you may use Jive. You may use any one of the social networks that are out there. But you don't need another social network inside your learning management system. Social tools are an enterprise service, no different than any other piece of infrastructure now. And what they don't do, and unfortunately people who tout a lot about using social tools for learning, is they don't really give you the context at your moment to find the expert that you need. It's easy to go out and find a community of practice and say, I have a question. But who's watching it? Who's actually going to engage with you that has the particular expertise that you need at that moment of time? So social unto itself doesn't get you personalization. Context, where am I? What device am I on? And behavior. And ultimately, behavior, I think, can best be categorized by looking at Amazon. When you go onto Amazon to buy a book, it comes up in the corner and says, you might also be interested in this other book, right? Well, that's because it's analyzing the data, looking at this very deeply, and trying to understand you as an individual and what would be helpful to you. And this roadmap to get to personalization involves a couple of things. And yes, this is our product, so you can come to stand 125 and see it more in detail. But that roadmap involves synthesizing the content itself. It involves having user data about your learners, and then it involves gathering information about what activities they're performing. Just like Amazon knows what books you bought, what is this person be doing? And the most important component for your technology roadmap is going to be to integrate something called a learning record store, which is based on this Tin Can X API standard. That's to solve all your reporting problems that exist with proprietary reporting systems. So if you can say, here's my content, and I can look at any individual piece of content. Did someone look at this page? Did they watch this video? Did they read this procedure? Did they look at this topic? And I can know who you are, where you work, and some information about what job and other attributes about what you are or who you are. And I can synthesize this with information in an open format that can come from any application that you build. I can start to move to this model of personalizing learning content and moving beyond the LMS. So I'm going to summarize this for you. Number one, you need to build modular content. Building courses that are tethered inside of a SCORM package is not the future of personalization. You need to break your content down into small, reusable chunks. Number two, it needs to be made available on any device. I know another word you're going to hear around here is we do responsive design. Responsive web design is not about shrinking desktop e-learning onto a smartphone. It's about being able to deliver the content across different devices with one output, one set of templates, but it's also about the right content for the mobile device. It's not about taking your e-learning and porting it over to the desktop. I don't know about you, but when I want to use my mobile phone, I read a lot more text in search results than I do on my desktop. I tend to watch more video on my mobile phone. I'm a little more patient watching an animated PowerPoint like this on my desktop, but not very patient on my mobile phone. So the type of engaging and interaction you do on a mobile phone tends to be different than what you do on a desktop device. I need to have good user profiles because the kind of information that you need to give to your business owners, your sales department, your operations, your manufacturing is about learning data like did they pass the course or complete it, synthesized with business data, like where is this salesperson year to date on their quota. And in order to do this, the data needs to be in a format that's easy to get at, that you can extract, merge with other business critical information so that you can provide information to your business owners that measures the impact of learning on the different operations of your business. This is not about HR compliance anymore. It's about sales, service, manufacturing, business operations. The way you get there is by having a learning record store and using this tin can API. So in the past, my learning management system would have been concerned with, did I pass or did I complete it? Maybe I like the course. In the future, I can measure things like, did someone observe you performing a task that gives you competency or evidence of competency for something? How much time did you spend on this? How much time did you spend compared to other people who had to perform this task? I think that as I move on and wrap up here, the kinds of reporting and dashboards you get by moving to this model are fundamentally different than what you get out of a learning management system. And what's really important is that if you change learning management systems later, or you have multiple learning management systems, this comes with you. It's in an open standard format that allows you to analyze the data without being locked in to one or two or merging that kind of data. So, you need to be able to measure the effectiveness of your content the same way web developers measure the effectiveness of your corporate website. And again, in order to do that, if I could wish every instructional designer, every person in learning and development who spent the last 10 years building Flash outputs, one wish, it would be to learn HTML and JavaScript, because that's the future of what L&D needs to know to implement this technology. And finally, what are the steps you need to take to build a technology roadmap for the future? Number one, you got to build your content in a smarter way than you're doing it. Modularizing it, making it searchable, making it accessible from anywhere. You need to be able to connect to any system. Whether you're using Salesforce.com and you want to get some learning content, or you have a homegrown application that needs help, or I want to take a formal course, I just have a learning portal that gives me information to a salesperson about my products and my competitive information and about objection handling. Whatever it is, you need to do that. Third thing, think, how is this content going to be used on a mobile device? I can't tell you how many companies we come into who all they get from the business is make me some engaging content. That's what I want. That's the old world. It can be engaging, but it needs to be mobile. It needs to be portable. It needs to be responsive. You need to give it to the learners how they want to get it, not just in my learning management system, not just on my desktop. And that doesn't mean doing the same thing for my mobile device. That may mean I do go to the desktop to take a course, which has lots of drag and drops and interactivities in it, and my mobile device gives me pre-course work or gives me performance support after the course is taken. It doesn't mean everything is the same always. You need to track what learners are doing, and that means analyzing the data. And if you haven't already looked at Tin Can and you haven't looked at a learning record store as part of your learning technology, you have to really make a decision. Do I want to go buy one and plug it into what I have? Or do I want to marry my content and my user and my activities together and have a platform for letting me personalize learning content? Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak.